Hello, I'm Zapel from TechRaptor, and we're here with Jorg Neumann, head of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now 2020, soon 2024. So, Jorg, can we talk about your 10 years plan? Did your plan change now? What's up with 2024? Is it longer? Is it shorter?
Yeah, the 10-year plan. So I think we're exceeding the 10-year plan. 10 years, basically, when we started 2020, there were people in the community that said, oh, Microsoft, they stopped FSX and then they stopped Microsoft Flight. And can we trust them with our hobby? And I said, yes, you can. We'll be here at least 10 years. And I think at some point people said, oh, they're going to support 2020 for 10 years, which is, by the way, also still true. But my goal was to just say, we're here to stay. And that's actually the conversation I had back in the day when I first pitched the title to Phil Spencer. Phil also said, well, Jorg, if we start this, we can't just stop again. And I said, yep. So when I basically put the team together, every interview I had, every conversation I had was, hey, if you join this team, this is a 10-year deal at least. And everybody's like, let's do it. So that was the commitment I needed from all of us to make the product, and from the company. Because Phil is obviously the CEO. He also knew that we need to be long term. So where we are now is we're 3 years in. We just had our 3-year anniversary. Yay! That was great. Wonderful community stats. But really the important thing is it's so successful that we could say, well, let's make a sequel and make it even better. And then there's a lot of reasons why we do a sequel, and I'm happy to talk about those. But now we are here, and with lots of energy going into 2024, and I believe we'll have extended the 10-year plan. Now to the 2020 thing, because people said, "Why are you going to stop supporting 2020?" No. So the goal is that when we first party make a new plane or a road update or a aircraft aviation update, they will also be in 2020. So think about it that way. There's going to be a platform that we have right now. There's a new platform that is allowing us to do more, quite frankly, because of we go even further into the cloud. But both games will be supported.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to ask you a slightly spicy question.
Spicy.
Yes. So, at Flight Sim Expo, one of your competitors, which I will not name, said something during their conference. They were talking about the history of the hobby. They said Microsoft, they abandoned and they say, trust me, they will do it again.
Yeah.
So what is your answer to that?
Well, Microsoft Flight Simulator has been around for 42 years. It's the oldest franchise we have at Microsoft. Everybody in the company is actually really proud of it. And specifically now, I think we have unprecedented success in flight simming. It has gone beyond the core of the hobby, which is core servers. We now have attracted other people. So I would just say, just watch us do what we do. Like we said, I think we are very conscientious of what we say and keep our word always. When we launched, we said we're going to make a big monthly update. And here we are 36 months later, and I think we have 40-something updates. And we continue to do those. And when I say we're going to be making Flight Sim for 10 years, we're going to do that.
I would also say that if I'm not wrong, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Microsoft that exists today is a different Microsoft than the Microsoft that abandoned Flight Sim back in the day.
That's interesting. I think Xbox in general, the beautiful thing about Xbox is how consumer-centric it is. It has a lot to do with our community and how much feedback we get from the community. Xbox Live helped a lot in all those things. And I think the Flight Sim community of all of them is one of the most active communities, both as users, with obviously many million users, but also for creators. And when you look at what's going on in Flight Sim, I think it's one of the most vibrant things there is in gaming, because there are hundreds, we actually counted up to 2,000 companies or individuals that make add-ons. And some of them sell it to the marketplace, some of them sell it to their own websites. And that level of groundswell and activity, I think is awesome, somewhat unprecedented, and super important. Because, we make games for fans. That's what we do. And we have massive amounts of fans here. So I think the future for flight sim is super bright.
Speaking of add-ons, you mentioned that the Antonov 225 had sold almost 1 million. Did it sell 1 million now?
It did. It did.
That's fantastic.
I think it's now at 1.3 or something like this. And,
That's great.
and Antonov is over the moon.
That's fantastic.
And we talked to them a lot, actually, about making other Antonov planes. So don't be too surprised if there will be more.
Yeah. I would love to have more of those.
They're cool planes.
So, talking a little bit about Tokyo Game Show, I'm gonna word this in a way that will let you be as vague as possible, not a spoiling announcement. But here, you're presenting something that's obviously bound to Germany. So, is it safe to assume that at Tokyo Game Show, since your next release coincides with Tokyo Game Show, it's safe to assume that you have some surprise for your Japanese fan base?
Yeah. So your website, is the guy who actually figured it out. We looked at, look, it's 9/21 is the next update. That's the same day as the Tokyo Game Show. And there's a plane that's a local legend. And so it's true. There's going to be a Japanese plane coming out at Tokyo Game Show.
Going back to Germany now. So talk a little bit about making this Dornier, which is one of the most classic planes.
Oh my God, it's one of those. I'm from Germany. I have to admit it. So when you grow up in my age anyways, you grow up as a German kid, you hear a lot about airplanes. Zeppelins came from here, right? They were done by Ferdinand Graf Zeppelin in 1909 or something. And then there were German planes. And then in flight sim, we've already embraced sort of the really great history of German aircraft. We have the Junkers F-13, the Dory J, which was the first one that went around across the South Atlantic. And then we did the Junkers U-52. But the plane that always stands out, that everybody knows about, is the Dornier DO-X. Was conceived by Claude Dornier in the 20s. And the idea was to go compete with the big ocean liners that basically went back and forth between Europe and the United States. So this flying boat was the largest plane of its time. It's one of the few planes that has over 10 engines. And it flew to New York. And there's a famous travel. It went through like South America, came up to New York, and stayed in New York for 9 months. Not because of glory, because they had to do some repairs. But it was a real true innovation in aviation. And they only ever made 3. So they were highly popular, but not commercially less successful. And because 2 of them were actually, where Giuseppe comes from, done in Italy, 1 was done in Germany. And all 3 are gone. There's nothing left. They sort of watched the landing in a lake in Bavaria for the German one. Then it was put in a museum and was destroyed in World War II. So there was almost nothing left. And I had almost given up the dream of creating the DO-X in flight sim. We have this thing called digital preservation. We go to a bunch of museums, we scan the planes, we talk to curators and experts, but there were no more DO-X's. But I ran into this group led by a gentleman called Peter Kielhorn, who has something called the Freundes- und Förderkreis DO-X. And they are currently building a real-life replica of the DO-X for the 100th anniversary. So for 2029, they're building the entire plane to scale. And they had done a decade worth of research, and they were gracious enough to give us all the research, the CAD model, all the drawings they found in various scattered through museums, and that made it possible to make this plane and to really make future generations be able to enjoy it, to appreciate what was done about 100 years ago, and that's the point of it. It's one of the points of Microsoft Flight Simulator is this: celebrate the history of aviation and its glorious creations over the years.
Okay, so who built this? What the developer?
The developer is Oliver Moser, is the main developer. He was also on the Junkers. So it's important to be able to read all the documentation. So most of what we found was in the Staatsarchiv St. Gallen, so in Switzerland actually. But you have to read the plans. You have to basically, so it's a big help. And the artwork was done by our top group making art. They're called Lacha. And it's been going on for a long time. We've put a crazy amount of effort into this plane. I mean, we built the interiors because think about it like an ocean liner in the sky. And there's like dinner rooms, sleeping rooms, all these other things. And we built all that. So I hope you check it out. It's a wonderful, wonderful aircraft. I'm super proud of it. And it's launching today.
So speaking about another series of aircraft that so far is only one. So the expert field. We can say that the ATR 42 and 72, it was really successful. At least I love it. I absolutely love it. So tell me, do you already have something in the plans to continue that series?
Definitely. Now the expert series, so as you probably know, in the flight simulation realm, there's something called study level, they call it. Study level, I think it's basically all the buttons are operable, all the systems are modeled accurately, failure systems are modeled accurately. And I didn't want to call it that, I want to call it expert level, because sometimes the manufacturers of the plane do not want us to do the failures. Right? They're very sensitive to that. Like, obviously, it's their business. But the goal of the expert series is to make planes that the manufacturer of the plane totally supports with their staff, and they give us all the information, and they also test it. And when they tell us this is great, then it is in fact great. So in the case of the ATR, I was throughout in contact, obviously, with the ATR. The head of the ATR training facility actually deployed our model in the training facility, had the test flight and play it. And when they told us, this is awesome, Jorg, that's when we were ready to ship. And that is the bar we're setting for this expert series. And do we make more? Absolutely.
We all know your policy for weapons. We know that the manufacturer of civilian planes don't really want to have weapons around their planes, which is understandable. But in Flight Sim 2024, there is an aircraft that is built around the weapon.
Yeah.
And so in the trailer, we saw that our weapon was missing. So let's talk A10.
Yeah.
This is gonna have the GAU, the big Vulcan in the front, because without it, it's kind of...
So there is actually a version of the A10 that has a sensor instead of the tank breaking weapon that it typically has. And that is the version that we're going to have in our marketplace.
I'm asking, since this is done by a pretty popular DC Designs developer, are you going to allow them to have their own version with the Canon outside of the marketplace, of course?
I think this is similar to what's going on with liveries, where we only can publish livery or put liveries on planes where we have a license from the airline, historical or modern. But that hasn't kept anybody from adding liveries elsewhere. And I think this is similar, in my opinion. As long I can take responsibility for what we put into our marketplace, and if people do add-ons beyond that.
So if the manufacturers have a problem with it, it's not your fault.
I think it's a manufacturer issue per se. I mean, we have rules that we have to abide by, and this is important. I mean, we all want to enjoy big airliners, and they are clearly sensitive to having weapons. So we will never officially. We will never.
Well, that's fair. As long as it happens somehow, everyone's happy, right?
I mean, people have done it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. It's an open platform. There's nothing we can do about it or hardly.
Some people say that you're making 2024 because 2020 has failed. So, and I love this response, but I would like you to respond to this in the most diplomatic way you can, of course. Or if you don't want to be diplomatic, fine. It's not my responsibility what to say.
Factually speaking, Flight Simulator 2020 is the most successful flight simulator ever made by probably a factor of 3 or 4. So is it not successful? No, it's very, very successful. It's so successful that there are hundreds, if not thousands of people making add-ons. And we are making a lot of additions, as you saw. Right? We make new additions to the sim every single month. And when you download all this, at some point or another, what you notice is your hard drive is full. And your community folder is full. And at some point, it doesn't scale in. So for us, an architectural change had to happen, which is, we explained that, Seb actually did a great job explaining that at the Flight Sim Expo. We have to go offload more to the cloud and be smarter about what is actually being put into memory. Because right now, some of the creators, and I fully understand why, they say, I'm going to make the best possible airport ever, and they put 8K textures on everything and infinite amount of polygons. And, while wonderful and beautiful and all that, it does cost a bunch of memory. And in the end of the day, that if you go too far, you either slow down the sim or you crash the sim on an Xbox. So you have to be careful with memory. And what we're doing with the cloud is we only fetch what is really drawn. Meaning if you're very far away from an airport, we will only load the mid-map that is really needed at that distance. And that enables us to do more. So everybody wants more. We get lots of feedback. Oh, we want more of this, more of this, more of this. Well, at some point, you're sort of maxed out. And we are quite maxed out already on 2020. We keep optimizing, do what we can. But then there's some new creator coming in with topping everybody else, and that causes, frankly, some lot of problems for the platform. So this new platform is a long-term play to be scalable for what I think there will be tens of thousands of add-ons, and the complexity will keep going. And that's what the hobby wants. And so architecturally, what we're doing now is the right thing to do. It's needed, because otherwise we're just going down this path that we want to innovate and add, but we're on a platform that is outdating more and more, and that gets heavier and heavier. So Flight Sim 2024, that's one of the reasons. The other one is a lot of people asked us, of course, some of them asked us, and then all the newcomers have asked us, can we get activities? Can we do something beyond flying from A to B? And the answer is yes. And so we're fully embracing those, in my mind, community requests. Hey, let's give us something to do. And we took the path of recreating activities that exist in the real world of aviation. So if you want to become an aviator, if you're interested in that, maybe as a career, you will learn more and more about, here's what planes really do, or helicopters really do. And you get the context inside Flight Sim, and you can train it.
So about 2024, you revealed quite a few features already. Some really, really cool ones, but some really, really ambitious ones also. But what I'm talking about, so far, you've revealed a lot of planes as well. But you say that there is a lot more planes that you have still to reveal. Am I correct?
Yes.
But in terms of features, have you revealed everything you have in your, or there is a lot more that you still have to tell us in the run-up to the launch?
There's an overwhelming amount of features. When you ask, honestly, we're in the middle of development right now, and not in the middle, but like we're in it. We're in it, and it's a huge. I mean, I said that in the Houston event. This is by far the biggest ambitious product ever made in the world of simulation. There's no question. With over 500 people working on this, experts in every field on just about anything imaginable. So we have barely scratched the surface about training.
So we can say that this is a completely different product. It's definitely not something that you could have made out as an add-on.
No. I mean, outside the architectural changes, I think they go very deep, those architectural changes. So you couldn't have done what we're doing now.
And just to be sure, since some people have wondered, and for me it's obvious, but I want your confirmation. What's in 2020 is going to be still available in 2024. So besides all the activities, you can still fly everywhere in the globe and all that, right?
No, it's a sim for simmers. It's a sim for simmers plus activities with a infrastructure that scales to the future.
So the activities are going to be a bonus or something on top of what we have.
It's a choice you make. You can go to free flight and do exactly what you're doing now with the same planes that you're flying right now, if that is what you want. The world will look better. There's a lot more other surrounding features that will make that more accurate, but there's obviously we never want to take anything away. We're just adding.
Something that I'm quite curious about. I don't know if you already have an answer. Feel free to tell me that you don't know yet if you don't. But will people flying a multiplayer in 2024 be able to fly together with people in 2020?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. So I think that has to be explored a little bit more. And that I'm not that close to that part of the tech right now, but
is it something that ideally you would want to do?
I think yes. The fundamental world is shared world, right? And it's finding friends and staying together is an important thing. But I think let's just put a pin on this for the next interview. I'll go inform myself a little bit more. I'm honestly not sure.
One thing that's a little bit of a weak point of 2020, according to me at least, is because I do a lot of trying to teach people to fly. And a lot of people tell me that despite the fact that you have made some effort to improve this, tutorials are still little with. Are you going to try to make them more extensive for 2024?
I think it's interesting. So we talked about this. Tutorials we could do more tutorials like the ones we've done. But I think what's even better is it's learning is embedded in the activities that they're doing. That there's going to be a lot deep hole to talk about. Like it's how the activity system is structured actually helps you develop the skills to be successful. Because it doesn't. If you're a newcomer to flight simulating and you're going to be put into a really hard search and rescue mission in the middle of a hurricane, you're probably not going to win. You're not going to be able to rescue someone. But you have to have the skills as a pilot to actually win. So you will naturally learn as you progress in the careers or like the activities what you need to know. So that is a different type of tutorial, but I think it's going to be more effective.
You have real world traffic, real world weather. 2024 is going to have another thing that could have some real world coordination. I don't know how possible it is, but I think there are some services that do it. Are we going to have real world fires to douse?
That's not decided yet. So real world fires are kind of interesting. There's a lot of interesting things about activities because we are conscientious that, like for example, we have fires right now. There's fires all over the planet, but we have a lot of fires in Canada right now. There's lots of fires in California, and now you live in Australia, and in your daytime, it's always nighttime in the United States. And you really want the Australians only to be able to do nighttime flights where you don't really fire from them. So there's a system that we're developing right now, and I think it's the right way where we offset that. So you can participate in things that it takes some of the real time, makes it a little bit more relative, but it's because we have a worldwide audience, and I think it's the right step.
And if there's something that you could perhaps apply it to weather as well, so I can have weather from 12 hours ago.
Yeah, maybe. So we're looking into weather right now because we sometimes get feedback. I was just in contact with, I think, a gentleman who works at the air traffic controls in New Zealand, and he gave some feedback that the weather forecasting is not great because we only have 3 weather points set in New Zealand. So we actually have the team looking at that right now because, as far as I know, we have 80-something thousand data points that we take as truths, and then there's a weather prediction model in the middle. But something like New Zealand, where you have a lot of mountains, I think the weather tends to be microclimate weather. So we're looking at weather right now. But there are weather libraries of past weather and things like that. It's quite different, and they are never worldwide. They always have to fill in a bunch of stuff because they actually didn't have all the weather information, right? So weather is a big topic. Can't really speak to it beyond what I just said right this moment, but I hear you. And I hear that ever so often that people say, hey, can we have historical weather? And I'm honestly, like, I'm working on a lot of these local legends, right? There are some local legends that really ran into, severe weather. And can we replicate that severe weather on some of these missions? And the answer is currently, in 2020, the answer is no. So we're looking at that right now because we want to be able to create a storm or a specific icing event because that's important. That is what made that flight challenging. So, but what do we say?
Yeah, I think personally, from what I read on forums, I think a lot of people would be happy already, even if you don't have full historical weather, if they were able to just offset it by 12 hours, like it's nighttime, but I'm flying in Japan. Yeah. So if I offset it by 12 hours, I can have day weather instead.
Okay, let me take that back to the team. We haven't had that particular discussion, but it's good. It's good.
Awesome. So do we have any last comment? So I'm letting you go because I see people starting to crowd up.
Well, coming. Thank you for playing tonight, Tim. Thank you for being a fan. Giuseppe and TechRaptor, I read it every day. Lovely. I love what you do. And Flight Sim 2024 is going to take us one step even above what we have right now. So I'm very, very excited about next year. There's going to be lots to talk about.
Thank you very much, Jorg. I was Giuseppe Neva from TechRaptor with Jorg Neumann from Microsoft Flight Simulator. Bye.